She never saw his face the first time they met. Just a flashlight beam, steady footsteps beside hers, and a voice that said it's not safe alone. It was only supposed to be one walk, one blackout night, but he came back, again and again. What she didn't know was that the quiet stranger who walked her home wasn't just kind, he was a missing millionaire CEO hiding in plain sight. And what started in the dark would change everything. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. The city didn't go quiet all at once. It happened like a slow inhale held too long, traffic lights flickered, elevator panels dimmed, and the usual humming spine of electric life stuttered into silence. No sirens, no alarms. Just stillness. Sera Wills stepped out of the hospital's side entrance with her badge tucked into her pocket and a half-finished granola bar clutched in her hand. The air was dense, unusually warm for October, and smelled faintly of metal and hot pavement. Across the street, storefronts blinked into darkness one by one until even the pharmacy sign gave up. The blackout wasn't a surprise. Everyone had been murmuring about rolling outages all week, but it was different when you were out in it, alone, in scrubs and cracked sneakers, with sore feet and a backpack that held more expired pens than anything useful. Her phone was at 3%. No flashlight. No service. Perfect. She considered calling a rideshare, but the app wouldn't load and she already knew no one would come. Gridlock was a given. The subway was likely stalled. She could either wait in the staff lounge with flickering backup lights and a room full of snoring residents or walk. She chose walk. Not because it was smart, but because it felt like movement, and movement meant not thinking. The route home wasn't far, 15 blocks if she cut through the old industrial corridor and past the dog park. But halfway through the second block, she felt it, that unnerving awareness of being watched. Or maybe just noticed. Her steps slowed slightly, the soft scuff of her soles against the pavement loud in the hush. Then came a click. A light. It wasn't overhead, no street lamps worked now, but low and to the side. A handheld flashlight tilted slightly down so it wouldn't blind her. A man stood across the street. Not close. Not threatening. Still. Sorry, he said quietly. Didn't mean to startle you. She didn't answer at first. Just stared. He was tall, dressed in black, hoodie, jeans, worn boots. His face was shadowed, backlit by the faint red glow of an emergency exit sign behind him. You headed north? He asked, gesturing vaguely in the same direction she had been walking. She nodded cautiously. I'll keep a few steps behind. This part's darker than most. Her brain offered all the usual warnings: don't talk to strangers, don't trust men in black hoodies, don't let your guard down when your city goes still. But her body didn't flinch. Something about him, the calm in his voice, the way he kept distance, didn't press, didn't feel wrong. She walked. So did he. Not beside her. Not behind her like a shadow. Just near. Block after block. No small talk. No introductions. Only the sound of their footsteps and the occasional sweep of his flashlight over uneven concrete or cracked curbs. She risked a glance after they passed the old laundromat. You always escort random women home during power outages? Just this week, he replied without missing a beat. Big week for walking. She huffed a laugh despite herself. How noble. Or nosy. Could be both. They passed a newsstand with metal shutters drawn, a mural half-painted on the side of a brick wall, and a pigeon that refused to move off the sidewalk. The darkness was deep here, old buildings with no backup generators. Just silhouettes and silence. She adjusted her backpack. You live around here? Sometimes. That made her glance at him again. How does someone sometimes live somewhere? He smiled. She couldn't see it, but she could hear it. When they're in between. In between what? Deciding to disappear and deciding to come back. The answer was unexpected. Honest, maybe. Or rehearsed. She couldn't tell. They reached the park that bordered her block. A rectangle of black trees and colder air. Usually she cut through to save time, but not tonight. She kept to the edge, closer to street level. You can head back, she said as her apartment building came into view. I'm good from here. You sure? She nodded. I've got 2 locked doors and a very moody cat upstairs. He clicked off the flashlight. Then good night. She turned, but paused. Hey! He looked up. Thanks. For the light. A beat. You're welcome. She waited for him to turn and leave. But he didn't. Just stood at the corner as she walked up the steps and opened the front door with her old metal key. Before she went inside, she looked back. He was gone. Just like that. No name. No number. No reason. Only a quiet walk in the dark that felt strangely safe. She told herself it was just coincidence. An odd night. A fluke. But 2 nights later, when she took the same street home just out of habit, she heard the familiar sound of steady footsteps again, and saw the flicker of a flashlight, not aimed at her, just lighting the way ahead. She didn't look for him. Not really. She just walked the same street again. The blackout had passed. The lights were back. But her feet still carried her down that same quiet stretch 2 nights later. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe the way the buildings framed the sky there. Maybe she liked how the air didn't smell like burning brakes and fried oil. She told herself it was the shortcut. But shortcuts don't make your heart speed up with every echo of footsteps. She heard him before she saw him, just like last time. A steady rhythm on pavement. Measured. Not chasing. Not hiding. Just walking. The flashlight flicked on as they neared the construction scaffolding at the end of the block, the same part where shadows like to gather. You again, she said, not surprised. He didn't smile, but something in his posture shifted. The slight lift of his chin, the quiet exhale that sounded like a yes. You changed your route? She asked, casual. Maybe. You a coincidence kind of guy? Only when I'm pretending not to be. She huffed a laugh. Honest answer. Is that allowed? Depends. On what? On whether you plan to follow me forever. He stopped walking for half a step, then caught up again. I only follow women who are terrible at checking over their shoulder. I did check. He looked at her sideways. And I let you keep walking. They reached the corner deli with the flickering sign. The city was louder tonight. Generators humming, neon blinking again. Life creeping back into its normal shape. But with him there, the noise blurred like background music. He didn't press her with questions. Didn't try to fill the space with stories about himself. He just noticed. When she switched her backpack to her left shoulder, he subtly angled the flashlight to avoid the glare. When a loud couple passed them, arguing about takeout, he angled his steps so his presence blocked the sound just enough. At the crosswalk, she asked, Do you work night shifts or just wander? Depends, he said. On what? On whether I need quiet or company. She glanced sideways. And tonight. Both. She didn't say anything for a while. They walked in near silence until they reached the small cracked alley that led behind her apartment. She paused, debating whether to go the long way. Safe there? He asked, nodding toward the alley. I've made it this far. Still, I've got pepper spray, she said. And sarcasm. He gave the smallest nod. That'll do. But when she turned, she heard him follow. Not closely, not pressing, just present. By the time they reached her door, her voice was softer. What's your name? He hesitated. Just a second. Then, Adam. No last name. No over-explaining. She nodded. Sera. Felt like something shifted. Not dramatically, Not all at once. Just a notch. She climbed the steps, this time not glancing back. But the next morning, when she passed the corner cafe on her way to the bus, she noticed a coffee cup sitting on the bench outside, steam curling from the lid, a name scrawled in black ink across the side. Sera, cinnamon and quiet. She froze, looked around. No one. She picked it up. Warm. Still fresh. She didn't drink it. Not then. But she carried it the whole way to the hospital. That night, she walked the long way home. Deliberately. He wasn't there. She told herself it was for the best. That she didn't want a stranger remembering her coffee preferences. But when she rounded the corner near the bookstore 3 blocks from home, there he was, leaning against the brick wall like he'd been waiting for no one in particular. He didn't say anything as he stepped into rhythm beside her. She didn't ask him to explain. It didn't become a ritual. Not right away. There was no agreement, no schedule. But somehow, when the world quieted past 9 p.m., and the city shook off its daytime chaos, he was there. Not every night, not like clockwork, but enough. Enough that she started carrying an extra scarf in case it got cold. Enough that she stopped pretending to scroll her phone on the way home. He never waited directly outside her building. That would have been too much, too obvious. But he was often nearby, sometimes sitting on the park bench, sometimes leaning against the lamppost that didn't work, always casual, always just appearing. They didn't talk about anything important. Not at first. Just little things. The best vending machine in the hospital basement. The weird smell coming from the vegan bakery near 8th. Whether pigeons had a secret union. But he listened. That's what unnerved her. He listened like her words mattered. And when he spoke, it was careful, like he'd learned to pick sentences the way some people picked locks. One Thursday evening, she met him outside the coffee shop where she picked up shifts on weekends. It was late, and the owners were closing early for a charity event. Something about kids, chalk, and city murals. Sera wiped her hands on her apron, stepped into the night, and saw him standing across the street. She tilted her head. "Stalking me now?" Adam smiled faintly. "Coincidence, right?" She crossed to him, tightening her jacket. "Wanna walk?" He nodded. They moved together, steps syncopated now, not quite in sync, but not clashing either. On the corner, she noticed a row of paper lanterns strung between street poles, soft gold against the deepening blue sky. "Oh," she said quietly. "I forgot this was tonight." Adam looked up. "What is it?" "Annual kids' art thing. They do chalk drawings in the park and hang lanterns. It's sweet." "Want to go?" She hesitated. "It's mostly for parents and toddlers. Then we'll blend right in." She eyed him. "You don't strike me as a bubble-blowing, face-painting type. Maybe I'm full of surprises." She snorted. "Doubt it." But she followed anyway. The park was lit with scattered lanterns, each drawn on by a child. Some had smiley faces, some messy names, some suns with too many rays. There was music, too off-key, recorded, tinny, but it made the air feel less sharp. Kids ran past them with chalk-dusted hands. One small girl bumped into Sera, giggling. She apologized breathlessly, then darted away. Sera blinked. "I forgot what joy looked like when it didn't need permission." Adam looked at her. "You talk like someone who doesn't get to watch kids be kids very often." "I don't," she said, voice soft. "I see them on the worst nights." She didn't explain further. He didn't ask. Instead, he pointed to a stall near the edge of the path. "Come on. I think we're being summoned by the paper crown gods." The stall had folded paper hats and markers. The volunteer looked up. Make your own crown. Adults too. Sera raised an eyebrow. Adam already had a marker in his hand. You're not serious, she said. He was. 5 minutes later, she wore a crooked paper crown with tiny hand-drawn stars. You look very majestic, he said. You look like someone who's never made a crown in his life. First time, he admitted. Figured. They sat on the edge of the fountain after that. Not close enough to touch, but near. Kids shrieked in the distance. The paper lanterns bobbed in the soft wind. Someone played a guitar poorly near the benches. Sera pulled her knees up to her chest. This feels like a memory I didn't plan to have. Adam tilted his head. Good one. She nodded. Maybe the kind that stays. They sat in silence again, but this time it pulsed with something warmer. Not tension. Not nerves. Something like possibility. Then, without looking at her, he said, You're not what I expected. She blinked. You expected something? He shrugged. People usually fill the silence. You let it breathe. She didn't answer. But later, as they walked home and passed a particularly uneven patch of sidewalk, she tripped. Just slightly. Not a fall. Just a stumble. His hand caught her elbow instinctively. Warm. Steady. Just a second too long before he let go. Neither of them said anything. But everything had shifted. It started with a question. Not a big one. Not personal. Just, what do you do exactly? They were walking home from the park again. Not after lanterns this time, just after coffee and quiet. The kind of night where the streets held their breath and the city blinked slower than usual. Adam hesitated. I used to work in tech, he said. Used to. He nodded. Now I mostly don't. That's vague. He smiled. That's intentional. Sera didn't push, but something shifted in her step just slightly. She changed the subject. Talked about the hospital. A patient who tried to pay for surgery in baseball cards. Her grandfather's obsession with weather reports. The way her apartment radiator hissed like a judgmental cat. Adam laughed at all the right parts. He offered a few dry comments of his own. But he never said much about himself. And that night, she noticed. She noticed how he never mentioned family. Never said where he lived. Never spoke about a job. His clothes were clean but generic. His boots were always the same. He had no phone out. Never checked the time. Do you always carry a flashlight? She asked suddenly. He looked at her. What do you mean? I mean, you always have it. Even now. Power's back. City's on. But you still have it. He looked down at the black device clipped to his jacket. Habit, he said after a moment. A useful one. She let it go. But the question stayed. That weekend she didn't see him. Not Friday. Not Saturday. On Sunday, the ache surprised her. She wasn't supposed to miss him. They hadn't made plans. Hadn't promised anything. But when she walked the usual route, slow, almost reluctant, and saw only flickering street lamps and her own reflection in the bakery glass, something in her chest sank. Back home, she fed her grandfather, reheated soup, folded laundry that smelled like disinfectant. She watched a movie she'd already seen 3 times. Laughed in the right places. Didn't feel any of it. At 2:14 a.m., she stepped out to take the trash. The street was still. Her breath fogged the cold air. She looked down the block. No flashlight. No Adam. She turned to go back inside. And stopped. On her doorstep sat a small takeout box. Plain brown, tied with a bit of twine. Inside, a single muffin. Her favorite kind, the one she only ever got from the shop on 12th Street. The one that sold out by 9 a.m. every morning. There was a note. You said Sundays were hard. No name. But she knew. She clutched the box in both hands, heart stumbling. The next night, when she saw him again, she didn't ask where he'd been. Instead, they walked in silence until she said, Do you ever miss who you were before? Adam looked at her for a long moment. I don't think I ever met him properly. They sat on a bench outside the bookstore, one of those little places that smelled like dust and memories. Sera pulled her scarf tighter. He watched a pigeon attempt to fit into a paper coffee cup and fail spectacularly. "Is that why you don't talk about it?" she asked. "What?" "Whatever you left behind." He didn't answer right away. "Then, some things are easier not to name." She turned toward him. "You know a lot about me." He stayed still. "You know where I work, what I drink, how I walk when I get quiet. You've heard about my grandfather, my job. My weird attachment to vending machine gummy bears." He smiled faintly. "They're good gummy bears. But I don't know a single true thing about you," she finished. Silence. Then he said, "That's not true." She raised an eyebrow. "I like your voice when you're tired. You get quieter but more honest. That's not a fact about you." "I'm afraid of elevators." She blinked. "Seriously. They creak. I overthink." She paused. "That's surprisingly human. Don't tell anyone." She didn't smile. "Not fully. Not this time. You ever going to tell me the rest?" He looked away. "When it won't change anything." And she didn't know what that meant. But it scared her. Because for the first time she realized she wanted something from him. Not gifts. Not walks. Not muffins. The truth. Even if it hurt. It started with rain. The kind that doesn't pour, just drizzles in slow, chilling threads that find their way under collars and through the gaps between thoughts. Sera was setting up at the kiosk, hands already half-numbed from the cold metal syrup pumps. The park was quieter than usual, only a few joggers and one dad chasing a toddler in superhero pajamas. She hadn't slept well. Hadn't eaten. Something in her felt out of sync, like a song with the beat slightly off. She glanced toward the far path where the bar district bled into the residential blocks. No one. Not yet. Around 9:20, a group of women passed the kiosk. 3 of them, all glossy hair and high-end athleisure, laughing too loudly, balancing overpriced coffee cups like props. They didn't stop to order. Just walked past. But their voices carried. "I swear it's him," one said, breathless. "Nate Hale. I'd know that jawline anywhere." "You're crazy," the second laughed. "He disappeared like 2 years ago. No socials, no sightings, no nothing." "Exactly. That's what makes it iconic. The app goes viral, he cashes out, then vanishes. Total legend. My cousin says he works in some bar now, just off the grid. Rebuilding his soul or whatever. A tech millionaire with a savior complex." "Ugh. Sexy." Their voices faded as they turned the corner. Sera stood frozen, her marker still hovering over the lid she was labeling. Her heart had stopped, not metaphorically. She was aware of it in the same way she was aware of her own breath in the cold. Missing. Then rushing. Nate Hale. She had heard that name before. On a podcast her coworker played in the lab. Something about mindfulness apps, public health tech, and a founder who walked away from it all. Her hands trembled as she made the next coffee. She smiled mechanically. Said, "Have a great day," through a throat gone dry. She didn't remember the rest of the shift. She didn't tell her grandfather when she got home. She didn't even open her laptop, not until it was dark and the rain started again, harder this time. And when she finally typed in the name, the screen exploded with confirmation. Photos. Headlines. Interviews. Wellness tech disruptor Nate Hale goes silent after $47 million buyout. From founder to ghost, where did Nate Hale go? There he was. His face younger, sharper, polished for cameras. But it was him. Her Adam. With a real name. A real past. A real everything. She stared for a long time. Then closed the laptop. No tears. No shouting. Just stillness. Then she put on her coat and walked out into the storm. The bar was dim as always. Candlelight flickered near the window. Music hummed low from unseen speakers. He was there wiping down glasses like it was just another quiet night. When he saw her, something in his face shifted. Relief. Maybe even something warmer. She didn't smile. "Your name isn't Adam." He froze. She stepped closer. Not much, just enough to make the space between them sharp. You knew everything about me, she said, voice low. But I didn't even know your last name. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I was going to tell you, he said. When? He didn't answer. I let you walk me home, she said, and her voice broke a little. I trusted you. You sat with me. You listened. You saw me. I did. She shook her head. But you didn't let me see you. He looked at her, really looked, like someone desperate to hold something still. I didn't want the name to come first, he said. I didn't want it to be about what I used to be. Then what was it about? He didn't speak. The silence roared. She turned before he could answer. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the sky was still heavy. The world felt too sharp, too exposed. Sera walked until her shoes soaked through, until the wind chafed her cheeks and her fingers went numb. She didn't know where she was going, just away. By the time she got home, her grandfather was asleep. The radio murmured soft jazz into the small kitchen, the kind that sounded like memories in a movie. She stood by the window, forehead pressed to the glass. He wasn't who she thought he was. But maybe that wasn't the real betrayal. Maybe it was that she didn't know what was real anymore. The package arrived 3 days later. No return address, just her name, written in calm, deliberate handwriting. Inside, a thermos of coffee, still faintly warm, and a folded piece of paper. Not a letter, a sketch. Hers. The one she thought she'd lost months ago. A quick pencil line on a napkin from a foggy morning at the kiosk. A little boy chasing pigeons near the park fountain. Only now, it had been smoothed out, cleaned up and colored, faint but careful. His smile more vivid. His feet mid-flight. The background filled with golden light and scattered leaves. At the bottom, in pencil, for the artist who saw more. She didn't cry. But something inside her uncoiled, something that had been wound too tightly for too long. Behind the drawing was a note, small and plain. There's a community art event tomorrow. Children's fundraiser. I'll be behind the scenes. If you want to see the rest of me, that's where I'll be. And she stared at it for a long time, then set it aside, and stared longer. She didn't know if she'd go. Didn't know what she wanted to say if she did. But the next morning, after folding laundry and refilling her grandfather's pillbox, she found herself brushing her hair, putting on the soft green jacket he once said made her look like spring. She walked to the park slowly, not sure what she was looking for, not sure what she hoped to find. There were kids everywhere, chalking dragons onto the sidewalk, painting cutout stars for garlands, building cardboard castles. She passed a station for bookmark making, one for sensory-friendly crafts, one where a group of volunteers helped kids create superhero masks. Everywhere she looked, color, joy, care. She paused near a mural in progress, a child painting a tree with hundreds of red leaves, each one added by a different hand. She breathed in, deeper than she meant to, and felt her ribs stretch for the first time in days. Then she saw him. He was kneeling beside a boy in a wheelchair, helping him unscrew a stubborn tube of yellow paint. No spotlight, no speech, just sleeves rolled up and focus on small things. Sera didn't walk over right away. She watched, waited for something in her to settle. When she finally approached, he looked up, didn't smile, didn't speak, just waited. She stood in front of him, arms folded loosely. "You didn't ask me to come," she said. "I wouldn't. You didn't explain. I didn't know how." He stood slowly, not close, just steady. She looked around at the chaos of kids, colors, and cardboard. "Why do you do this?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, because she couldn't, Sera froze. You don't talk about her, she said gently. She was the one who saw it first, he said. The gap, the kids who fall through, the programs that disappear when the grants dry up. She used to say art makes space for breath. She was your? He nodded. My sister. A silence settled between them. Not empty, not heavy, just real. I thought I could build something big enough to fix what she left behind, he said. Apps, funding, programs. But none of it made the grief less. And the more noise I made, the less I heard anyone. Sera looked at him, not at the clothes, not at the carefully quiet expression. The man. You walked me home, she said, when I didn't even know I needed company. I didn't know either, he said. Not at first. She exhaled slowly. I'm still mad. He nodded. You're allowed. She looked around again at the lanterns swaying in the breeze, at the paint-splattered benches, at the mural behind them. I don't want to be someone's cause, she said. Someone's reminder that real life exists. You're not, he said softly. You're someone who walked through it before I did. She didn't reply. Instead, she stepped closer, just enough that her shoulder nearly brushed his. Then, just before turning to leave, she said quietly, if this is your way of showing me the rest. I see it. And she walked away. But this time, she didn't feel like she was walking alone. The second package came 3 days later. Smaller. Lighter. Inside, a tin of colored pencils, soft core, real artist's grade, and another sketch. Hers again. But not the original this time. A new version. It was the same scene. The boy with the pigeons. But now he wasn't alone. There was a woman in the background, standing at the edge of the fountain, smiling. She wore a scarf wrapped around her neck the same way Sera always did when it was windy. The sketch was signed. For the girl who made me real again. N. She didn't sit with it long. Didn't weigh it, dissect it, replay old fears. She folded the drawing, slid it carefully into the pocket of her jacket, and walked out the door. No text. No warning. Just choice. The bar was quieter than usual. A Tuesday lull. Music low. Glasses stacked neatly behind the counter. He was there. Not looking at the door. Just there. When he finally saw her, he stopped moving. She walked to the counter and leaned on it like she had that very first night, tired, unsure, but just brave enough. I got your message, she said. He didn't speak. She didn't need him to. I don't want a spotlight, she added. I don't need saving. I just want someone who stays, he finished. She nodded. He looked down, then toward the door. I'm off in 5. She waited. And when he finished, he didn't walk behind her. He walked beside her. They didn't talk much. Not at first. They passed the bookstore, the mural wall, the paper lantern poles still dangling tattered strings from the weekend. At one point, she said, "You're allowed to kiss me now." He stopped. So did she. Their eyes met, and in that one pause, that breath between moments, he kissed her. Not like someone claiming a prize. Not like someone earning forgiveness, but like someone choosing. When they kept walking again, they were quiet. But something in the space between their steps had changed. Not louder, not faster, just closer. As they neared her building, he glanced up at the old facade, then down at her hand in his. You still think this is just a blackout story? He asked softly. She smiled. No, she said. It's a story about someone who showed up. And didn't leave. They reached the door. She turned the key. Paused. Still want to see the ghost copier? He grinned. Only if I get to sweep with you. She laughed, the kind of laugh that didn't sound like defense or deflection or exhaustion. The kind he first heard across a cracked sidewalk in a broken city. And in that moment, it wasn't about money. It wasn't about lies or titles or secrets. It was about choice. About two people walking side by side into something uncertain and choosing it anyway. Together.